Tell me, friend, when did Saruman the Wise abandon reason for madness?
It's time for another scene analysis from Peter Jackson's The Lord of the Rings trilogy. I know I've made a few of these already in quite quick succession, which is unlike me, but scene analyses are fun to make. You get to tease out a lot of depth, but because it's just on a single scene, you can keep it quite concise. Though I will say that work on the Good Will Hunting episode 6 is underway, so hopefully that's in the near future. Anyway, we've talked about the darker scene in a trilogy before, and we've talked about the first scene. Now we're going to talk about an easy to overlook scene. When you think of the best scenes from the trilogy, you think of the moving ones or the big battles. You tend to forget the small but important conversation followed by a quick fight between two old men. This is, of course, the scene from the Fellowship of the Ring where Gandalf rides to Isengard in order to seek counsel from Saruman. If you hear any odd noises in the background of this video, that will probably be because I've got some house rabbits sitting in the same room as me at the moment, so I can supervise as much as possible while getting them to bond. Other than that, let's just get straight into it. We cut from a chilling shot of the Black Rider to a grey rider travelling with great urgency. The images of horses linking the shots. I think it's important, following a touching moment between Frodo and Sam, to remind us how little time is available and inject a bit of pace into the narrative again. Touching scene, reminder of danger, reminder of urgency. Isengard, of course, here looks quite beautiful. A little like a large windmill over a farm or something, very picturesque and sets the scene very clearly, but as this urgent pace leads Gandalf to his destination, we hear Saruman talk out over the top of everything.
The hour grows late, and Gandalf the Grey rides to Isengard, seeking my counsel.
Which again, yes, is another reminder of urgency. We're technically almost 40 minutes into a story that still feels like it's getting going, so I think these reminders do help, even if in many situations they could be overused. It's no good just reminding the audience of lingering danger and concerns if they don't amount to anything. But it does here. Gandalf gets imprisoned, Frodo gets stabbed. Both these two important threads through the beginning of the film, Frodo heading out and Gandalf discovering about the ring, both come to a dramatic peak. Anyway, this voiceover thing of course conveys a great sense of power and majesty to Saruman, an effect later used again sort of with Galadriel's introduction. I think introducing both of them in similar ways, both descending down a staircase to emphasise their power even more, adds to a sense of danger and awe I suppose we might feel about Galadriel. She's introduced like Saruman, so is she as bad as him? Could she risk becoming like him? In many ways, Frodo's temptation brings her very, very close. But like I say, power emanates from Saruman in no small part due to Christopher Lee's phenomenal voice. Also this above shot that affirms the enormity of this tower now. What appeared deceptively picturesque a moment ago now dwarfs Gandalf, and these two sides appear like dark jaws closing him in. But then Saruman's voice turns from magically inside Gandalf's head to ordinarily out loud.
Well, that is why you have come, is it not?
You notice a little exposition is being done here in a way that could often come across as lazy, just having the person your character is going to meet declaring out loud why they have come and what this meeting is for in order that the audience can understand. But here it works because it again adds to this feel of Saruman as powerful and all-knowing, but also quite keen to show his power, in direct contrast to the often humble Gandalf, who largely conceals it except in moments it is necessary. But cutting down to this ordinary voice after this very dramatic introduction to the character, that softens the effect a little, makes him more human and likeable, as does him smiling and adding,
"My old friend."
The part is well acted here because there's enough of a sinister sense to Saruman that we understand and accept his turning to Sauron, but also just enough affection that we can understand why Gandalf falls for it. It's well done, and it sort of adds to a visual contrast throughout this scene. Let me trace it properly. We have Gandalf riding through sunny nature with picturesque Isengard, then into the closing jaws of a dark tower. We have Saruman descending very villain-like out of this tower into sunlight with a warm smile and an affectionate greeting. We have a shot panning away from the lofty heights of this dark tower down to the ground, down to where it's green and natural and picturesque again. before finally moving to the darkness within the tower and Gandalf being flung to the top of it. A visual battle within the scene, not just between Gandalf and Saruman, or even nature and the Iron of Isengard's emphasised by the designs of their staffs, but also between the highs and lows, the lofty heights of power down to the earthiness, the land where what truly matters is much clearer. A visual contrast that, if you expanded it out further, pits the lofty power of Sauron against the humble beauty and heart of the Shire. That symbolic struggle is present in the very setting of this scene, and I think that's quite masterful. Not only as a battle between both wizards' points of view, but the sometimes beautiful, sometimes sinister setting of Isengard itself, I think highlights Saruman's potential still both for good or ill. He wasn't always a villain, really. He was partly warped by Sauron in the Palantir. It's nice to see shades of both somewhere within.
You are sure of this?
Beyond any doubt.
So the Ring of Power has been found.
So as I've said, a nice establishing shot where we see them talking in the peaceful garden and can discern that Gandalf has explained everything necessary. I like how stiff Saruman sounds though. His stare fixed forwards with yearning, though trying to hide this desire beneath a superior sort of calm. In a great exchange to highlight the difference between Saruman's lofty manner and Gandalf's humility, Gandalf admits,
All these long years it was in the Shire, under my very nose.
Gandalf is honest, humble, where Saruman scorns him like a harsh teacher.
Yet you did not have the wit to see it. Your love of the halfling's leaf has clearly slowed your mind.
It's an unnecessary jab, playing on Gandalf's humble nature to make him seem stupid and Saruman himself much wiser in comparison. In this light you realise how forced and insecure it is really to have introduced himself so dramatically, announcing to Gandalf why he's come to visit, descending the stairs. It's the sort of things you might expect from a wizard said to be jealous of Gandalf, a wizard who, among other things, was annoyed at becoming head of the White Council only after Gandalf turned it down. These appear like shallow attempts really to cast himself the wiser wizard, when often I suppose it's those who feel no need to go announcing their wisdom and intelligence that often appear the wisest of all. Fitting also because it makes clear Saruman feels no urgency in all the ways the narrative has reminded us.
But we still have time. Time enough to counter Sauron if we act quickly.
Time.
Saruman questions, bringing their fast pace to a sudden stop. He feels none of this urgency because, really, he's already given in.
What time do you think we have?
To which we cut to a shot passing through the thin, suffocating corridor within Orthanc Tower in a way that feels already like imprisonment. Gandalf stands, signalling his urgency, where Saruman sits more calmly, explaining Sauron's rising strength.
Concealed within his fortress, the Lord of Mordor sees all.
We get a very slight zoom in on all the shots of Gandalf here to emphasise his growing fear of what Saruman is relating.
Sauron.
He is gathering all evil to him.
Gandalf questions how Saruman knows this, to which we get a dramatic turn of the head, and
I have seen it.
before we cut to the next segment of their conversation, this time happening back out in the lobby, throne room. It's quite effective though to keep cutting their conversation into different settings to inject a bit of pace into it. It's the sort of thing Christopher Nolan does fairly often, not just because it adds a sense of pace, but breaks up the conversation into more digestible chunks, I suppose. Again, it's the sort of thing you could go overboard with, but it's effective here. Talk in one place, end on a crucial point, then cut to the same conversation happening in a different space.
Palantir is a dangerous tool, Saruman.
Why? Why should we fear to use it?
Again, a very simple exchange, but one that A, establishes the Palantir as an important object with this clear shot to stick in our minds, but B, emphasises Saruman's arrogance really. We are easily powerful enough to wield it, why should we hold back? Which is, of course, the sort of argument you hear get made about the ring, and why to use it. I am strong enough to wield its power, when really he isn't. Perhaps the mere idea he thinks he is capable is exactly why he's not. Anyway, the camera is swaying increasingly so now as Gandalf is starting to feel uneasy, trapped. He gives his warning about the Palantir and throws the cover back over where he gets a sense of Sauron. A great touch, really, revealing and recovering the Palantir to visually demonstrate their difference of opinion, visually affirming its danger by linking it to Sauron, and our growing suspicions about Saruman now all but confirmed. We've seen this struggle between sunlight and darkness, highs and lows, nature and iron. The latter now has largely won out as Saruman appears increasingly sinister.
The hour is later than you think. Sauron's forces are already moving.
We begin to understand exactly why Saruman lacks all urgency, why he seems to lack fear or panic about the situation. He's already given in, decided it's hopeless, not falling into a state of wallowing, but embracing Sauron's darkness. There is, of course, more to Saruman's motives than that, his own desire to wield the ring and eventually break from Sauron, though I doubt it would be very persuasive for him to mention that now. Either way, there's a great deal of cynicism to his beliefs here. There's no point in fighting. Sauron has already won.
Against the power of Mordor, there can be no victory. We must join with him.
Which of course is a less anxiety-ridden perspective to take up. Gandalf is full of urgency and worry and fear about what to do, whereas Saruman essentially sheds all panic. He gets to feel in control this way, hence how in control he is during this scene, sat calmly upon his throne. It's the easier thing to do, less frightening than the worry and desperation of fighting back against the darkness, arguably letting his hope twist instead into a very relaxed state of cynicism. Though I don't like to ram my own forced feelings into art when it doesn't necessarily relate, it does just make me think of climate change and how much easier it is to decide we've already lost the fight when, really, perhaps we should be raging at our world leaders. Perhaps sometimes maintaining hope enough to fight requires great courage, the sort Gandalf shows, to bear the burden of this worry and fear about how to fight back. I don't think that's what this story is about at all, but it just feels like a good kind of personal example to demonstrate the struggle between hope and cynicism that is partly present in this interaction between Gandalf and Saruman. We've had Saruman's true and many colours reveal themselves, perhaps clearest in the vivid shots of him sealing the doors, but Gandalf now responds to all this persuasion by asking,
"When did Saruman the Wise abandon reason for madness?"
And I love how the eerie music in the background stops as he says this, as though the scene is holding its breath, poised for the inevitable fight that's about to break out. And a wonderful shot of Saruman's eyes widening really sticks out in this scene. This fight isn't exactly a cool fight. It's not like that awesome spectacle in The Order of the Phoenix where Dumbledore and Voldemort are flinging shards of glass and spheres of water and stuff. Neither wizard gets to come away from this looking good or powerful, just both hurt. We feel the impact much more because it isn't obscured in CGI effects. Both these great and powerful wizards are kind of reduced to two pained old men, which I'm sure a lot of people don't like about this scene. One, because it is less cool, and two, because both characters deserve to look more powerful. I think we get to see a lot of that later though. Gandalf gets his moment of spectacle when fighting the Balrog. Right now, the minimal, painful closeness of this fight I think makes the danger so much more palpable. The one character we've trusted all throughout the early stages of this film to know what to do, to be in control, to give us all the important information, we see him half broken. If even Gandalf can be broken, what hope is there? Also because it's a very intimate way of fighting with magic. Magic in general isn't an intimate form of battle because it's always done at some level of distance, and the wielders of magic get to some extent to look in control, but this is a fight like the magical staff equivalent of an exhausting, closely packed slugging match. And for two characters who've had a great deal of personal feeling about each other, giving them a more intimate form of combat is impactful. Then Gandalf gets flung to the top of the tower, to which, if we return to this battle of highs and lows in the scene, the highs seem to win out. We hear Gandalf scream, fear in his eyes as he rises, and we feel, perhaps more so than even in his actual death, that the fight against Sauron is a very difficult one. At 43 minutes into the film, this sort of moment is necessary. It's a great blow. No longer just reminds us of urgency and danger, but an actual attack that has damaging effect, sort of. I mean, I know he escapes quite easily, but it does mean we spend Frodo's first section of adventure feeling worried and a little lost. The fear of the Black Riders are increased for how we've seen Gandalf be beaten. That's pretty much everything I wanted to say about this scene though. Hope you enjoyed it. No idea what Lord of the Rings scene I'll analyse next or when it will happen, but it most certainly will at some point. Like it if you did like it. Comment your thoughts, disagreements, things I've missed. Subscribe if you want to help me reach 100,000 subscribers so we can celebrate and I can announce some new exciting ideas. Support me on Patreon if you fancy that, but otherwise, hopefully see you next time. As ever, a special thank you goes to Devin, Kestrel, Arwen, Janice McMahon, Luke Hoare, Chichu Kaber, Michael Gallagher, InSquares, Samara Salsi, Sharakov2814, Joshua C. Follier, Chad Bramwell, Incomplete Sentience, and Nicholas Patrick. Thank you.